Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining us here at Artwork Center for Contemporary Art. My name is Jennifer Hernandez, and I'm the gallery manager here. I am pleased and very honored to introduce Abbie Powers, and she is going to take us through her newest installation here at our gallery. And here's just a little bit of information about her. So Abbie Powers is an installation and performance and video artist living and working in the heart of downtown Loveland, Colorado. She has a studio here at Artwork Center for Contemporary Art. She holds a Master's of Fine Arts and Sculpture from the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth in North Dartmouth, Massachusetts. She also holds a Bachelor of Science in Studio Arts from Wayne State College in Wayne, Nebraska. Her work is in several private collections and has been sponsored by the NEA and Art Place America, featured in Sunset Magazine, and has been exhibited nationally at such venues as Wayne State College, Concordia University in Nebraska, and the University of Northern Colorado, Dallas Theological Seminary, the University of Colorado Denver, and Loveland Museum Gallery, BDNY, and BD West. Without further ado, here's Abbie.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you Artwork Center for Contemporary Art for allowing me the opportunity to have this solo show of my first two-dimensional body of artwork. I'm very excited to share the artwork with you today. I would encourage you, if you feel comfortable, to come visit the gallery. You can call ahead if you'd like to set up a time to come visit. The show runs through July 25th and next Wednesday, July 1st at 5:30, running until 7 p.m. We will be doing a live Zoom call. So if you would like to join in and ask me some questions or share insights about the bodywork, I would absolutely love to have you join. The title of the show is Liminal. I was, I am, I will be. The word liminal comes from the Latin word limen, which means threshold. First of all, I'm going to read a little poem from the artist statement, and then I will get into the idea of liminal space. What does it mean for the soul to fly? Set wheels on the long runway of Nebraska, knee-deep in the grasslands. Gain wind over the high prairie, rise on the thermals where the prairie gives way to the foothills. Hear the whispers of the ancients rise out of the layer upon layer of rock. Launch skyward where the mountains kiss sky. Allow clouds to soothe soul. Lift spirit, finally, truly feel oneself. This body of work is a body of work I've been thinking about creating for about 2 years now, and I'm delighted to have the time and space to actually see the body of work come to fruition. The idea of liminal space is the idea of a transition point, a threshold, which includes being outside the actual point of transition and being on the other side of the transition. As a human, I was considering the idea of what it means to be in transition before coronavirus hit and the entire world joined me in that space of transition. So I'm excited to be considering this body of work at this point, and I would love if you would join me in that consideration. The artwork consists of hand-dyed silk panels, where all of the coloration is done in a dye pot on the silk, and then I'm using encaustic wax medium to adhere the silk to prepared panel board. So all of the color that you see in all of the artwork in this show was done in a pot of water with heat and introducing dye. Some of the pieces have been dyed 3 or 4 times, the silk. I dye the silk, and then I evaluate the coloration and the layout, the composition, and if I am not happy with it, I dye it again, introduce more colors or different forms to the actual pieces of silk. And once the silk is colored the way that I would like it to be colored, I use encaustic wax medium, which is beeswax and damar resin. that I've created and prepared. I paint the wax onto the silk on top of the panel, the hot wax, and then manipulate it with the heat gun or a torch to create the surface work, the uniform surface that you see in the show. I then go back in and I remove wax or I add wax to build up the surface and to either obscure the coloration or enhance the coloration. And then after the wax cures, I go back in and polish the surface. So some of them are a high gloss, some of them I leave alone so that they're a matte surface and they really suck the light in. The show is split into 3 sections, much as a transition. The first section is over here, so we'll go for a little walk and we'll talk about that section. So the entrance to the show, and there's a piece behind me over here, is titled The Storm, and I think of this idea of the storm brewing and what the storm is bringing. The idea of clouds billowing and how clouds move through the landscape in northern Colorado is something that is important to me, and it's something that I watch every day, being a person that spends more time out of doors than indoors. So, and goes around the corner as well, this first section. So it's this idea of the billowing and the growing of something that causes a transition or a change in life. So, move on to the next section. These pieces here are also a part of the storm. The next section of this body of work is what I consider the night. And it's entering a dark place and being okay to be in that space and to fully feel what what that space has to offer, whether it's positive or negative, but allowing yourself to feel in that space. Section of the show is what I consider the winter, and I think of winter as a time of renewal, a time of restoration, and a time of rest for the spring that will burst forth following the winter and what grows out of the space of winter. Okay, now we're going to open it up to questions.
Abbie, how did you start exploring and discovering the process of the dyeing and the wax?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. The dye exploration came out of the silk scarf line that I create and have been creating for about 9 years now. I have been trying to capture the landscape of Colorado through that dye work, and realized several years ago that I wanted to see those silk panels on the wall. I'm not a painter, and I'm okay with not being a painter. I honor and respect painters because it's really hard. But I think that this is my way of putting color on the wall with the tools that I have and the tools that I feel comfortable using. I think the pushing into the encaustic medium and the use of the wax was my desire to move away from a 2-part epoxy resin which is basically using plastic to something more natural that is also archival and stands the test of time. I feel much more comfortable using the wax and the natural hardener than I did the epoxy resin. I also absolutely love the surface quality that the wax, the encaustic medium lends itself to the panels. I prefer that over the epoxy resin.
Are your dyes natural or?
No, they're a powder dye that, like what we would use to dye our clothing.
Is there any limitation for a big canvas because of the hand dye? I mean, can you do a huge piece
Is there a limitation?
on size?
Yes and no. I think I can source silk that's 55 inches wide, but the length is of no concern because it's 50 yards long. So it can go and go and go. But I think the biggest limitation is the physicality of working on the panel. I did a couple of larger rectangular pieces and they were more challenging than the long ones in terms of working horizontal and then also keeping the wax at the right temperature throughout the whole panel is one of the limitations.
Your piece in the hallway, the storm, visually it's very similar or evokes your installations.
Yes.
The ceiling pieces, was that intentional or?
Yes.
Sort of your work, yeah.
Yes, absolutely intentional. I study clouds a lot, and by that I mean I look at clouds a lot. And I think that there's something really stunning about the form of the clouds. And I think also that those, the curves in that work specifically, echoing the way the silk drapes in the installations also echoes the female form, which I'm really interested in as a sort of a continuation of a theme.
And then this piece here, particularly the first one here on that wall,
Yes.
they're very divergent from that cloud form.
Yes.
So that-
Yes, I also think a lot about water, which is another sort of iteration of a cloud. And I think that the two on this wall in particular remind me a lot of the ocean and the forms of waves. And having lived next to the ocean for several years, I think it got into me and has not, it will not, hopefully will never leave me, the desire to be near the water. I also think they directly reference the way the foothills just to the west of us layer up on each other, which is something I also look at every day. Yeah.
Kind of piggybacking on that, I've found in a few of these pieces there's a striking architectural element. Is that something that you embraced or was it a byproduct of the dye process?
Both. Another thing I think a lot about is how we inhabit our spaces and how we are continually either enhancing them or taking away from them. And I think encouraging some of the architectural forms when I'm folding and dyeing the silk is something that I did intentionally. And I would love to continue to explore that as well.
Another quick question about the process. I'm so fascinated with that part of it. Are you at all looking at some of the Japanese shibori artists because you're sort of mimicking that with the folding and the dyeing? Right. How much of that is kind of seeping in, or how much of your work is paying homage to that tradition?
Completely honest, I haven't done a lot of looking outside or into art history to fashion this body of work. I think it was me following a thread, if you will, which was the idea of the silk scarves that I've been working on for several years. I'm self-taught in fiber art, so I don't have a lot of the art history background in the fiber art world, but I'm looking forward to doing more research in that direction.
I think it's really successful the way that you have manipulated and sort of found this path on your own. It's at once fiber art, it's almost painting, it's mixed media. You're kind of really crossing all of these genres
Yeah.
and bringing them together in a really innovative way. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? Before the storm comes?
Not a question, but the rainstorm we went through right now is like amazing with your work.
Oh,
And
yeah.
It's really cool actually seeing your work.
Thank you. So I want to remind everybody watching that if you are unable to come see the show in person, that up on artworksloveland.org, which is the Artworks Center for Contemporary Art website, there's a slideshow of the body of work. And if you would like to come, you're more than welcome to call the gallery and let us know you're coming, or make an appointment if you have a group of 4 or more. And if you'd like to purchase any of the artwork from this show, please call the gallery, come see the work, email. The phone number is 970 The phone number is 970-663-5555.
Thank you, Abbie.